Hello. I wanted to say a few words today in the Playas series about why do we chase players? And I've got 15 tips here regarding why we chase people. Why do we chase people the way we do? What are the sorts of triggers that mean that we have this desire to chase player type people, even though deep down, if we were honest, we would say that we don't really want to chase these types of people at all, because when we do, generally it can play right into their hands, and we don't really want to do that with people that have generally been playing us along the way for whatever reason. So today I've got some tips as far as why we chase players, and possibly then we can think about the ways in which we can sort of counter these feelings as far as chasing people who really just want to play us at the end of the day. And one of the reasons why we sometimes want to chase people is because they're not chasing us. And that can be quite annoying sometimes, and can often be the case that it's the ego really that's at work there, where we're not being chased in a way that we want to. And we might feel a bit miffed about that. And so we get on our running shoes and we get after that person who generally doesn't like being chased, because players generally like to be in control, of course. So that can often make them run in the opposite direction, which is not the result that we wanted. The next tip that I've got here is one of the reasons why we chase also is if we've been rejected by the player. And sometimes players know that this is going to be the effect that it's going to have when we reject them, when they reject us, I should say. Because we suddenly may get the feeling that, hey, they do look a little bit more attractive than I thought they were after all. And can trigger our chasing hormones, as it were, and get us to go running after that player again to see why they didn't want us, and potentially to convince them of our amazingness so that they will want to chase us in the future. And number 3, one of the reasons why we may want to chase is that they've actually got someone else. And again, that can really hit the ego hard when someone else has chosen a member of our own sex over us, apparently, and no longer want us. So if we've had our self-esteem hit and our confidence in that way, sometimes we may want to chase them down to try and convince them that we're better than the person they're with. So that's often not a good outcome to that one. Number 4, often it's because the player has said to us that they don't want a relationship with us. And potentially, if they've only been using someone for sex, for instance, and they've said, well, you know what, you're not good enough for a relationship, but you're good enough for me to sleep with. This can often trigger our chasing desire, because we want to chase them down and convince them of our awesomeness and how brilliant we are as a relationship partner. Whereas the player may just be interested in sex at the end of the day. So number 5, looking at other men or women can often trigger our desire to want to chase these people, because we're thinking, why do they want to look at other men or women when they've got us? So that one could be our jealousy kicking in there and getting us to chase the player down and to convince them that, you know, they don't need to look at anybody else because they have us, after all. Number 6, when the player makes us feel undesirable. And some player type people know that criticism and indifference can make us feel bad about ourselves and to touch on our self-esteem. And therefore, we may want to upgrade our input into the relationship so that we can convince them that we're not that bad after all, that we're good, that we're amazing, and that they shouldn't criticise us and undermine us in the way they have been, which potentially could have been done on purpose. So, chasing people who have criticised us or abused us in some way is probably not a good idea, because that generally builds up their ego even more. Abandonment. Sometimes when the player type person has used deliberately abandonment, that can trigger our own issues of abandonment, and that can get us to chase or do whatever it is they want us to do. So using abandonment, which is used quite often actually, can make us chase, and also it can kick into our insecurities as far as our own abandonment issues are concerned. Number 9, we could have been, during the process of the relationship with this player, groomed in order to chase them. So some players will groom us into doing all the work and to doing all the chasing so that they don't have to do very much work, and so that we're handing our power over to the player. And in that sense, they can just sit back, put their feet up in the relationship and let you do all the work and all the chasing. So chasing is sometimes groomed into us so that we do all the work in the relationship. Number 10, withholding. This is quite a biggie. When people withhold what we want from us, and generally in the initial stages they've asked certain questions to find out what our desires are and what we want, then withholding those things that we want can trigger our desire to chase, because we think they have what we want and they're going to give it to us if only we would chase them down for whatever it is. Number 11, we may want to chase if we have low self-esteem. And actually, if we've been involved with a player, we may have low self-esteem anyway, because sometimes it can lower our self-esteem when we're in relationship with people who do not respect us. Number 12, low self-confidence. This is a biggie. If we do not have very much self-confidence in ourselves, which could again have been brought on with the relationship with the player type person, we could chase because we want their validation. We want them to validate us and to affirm our worthiness, as it were. And so we could chase them down, and in that sense the player has all the power and control. Number 13, indifference. The player may just be very indifferent to us and actually be behaving as if we are not worthwhile and not worth their time. And that can trigger our chasing hormone, and we want to chase down that feeling that we are worthwhile, which, strangely enough, we can only get with this player. So indifference is sometimes used as a way to bring us back in line with the player's agenda. Number 14, intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement, and I've got a video over there on intermittent reinforcement, so you might like to have a look at that, is sometimes used to keep us on the hook and on the relationship bench at the same time. Because dipping in and out every now and again to reinforce what there is of the relationship can sometimes trigger our desire to chase that person down and to reinforce us on a permanent basis. Number 15, then disappearing. Boy, this is a big one. This is one that really gets us going. If they disappear and apparently are not coming back. But of course, as we know, many players do pop up on a continual basis at some point in the future, usually when we're quite indifferent to them. So indifference and disappearing can be big triggers as far as us wanting to chase down a relationship which may at the end of the day never have been there in the first place. As always, stay safe and very happy. Bye bye.